Well, by God's grace, when I was a senior at the University of Richmond, he was leading me to international missions. And so I went overseas with a IMB to my own Botswana. But I had a love for Jesus and others, but that's about it, and all I knew. And I grew my love for the Word. I'm teaching a lot from the Old Testament through Christ and allowing people to see Him in that. But had other people with me all the time, and which was a huge blessing for the few that got to come to faith. But so God had put in my heart at an early age, though, to a heart for the nations and for others to know Him. And so, but doing just a lot of teaching during that time. And then when I was overseas, I learned about something called seminary, but I thought that was for nuns or something like that. But I went there, and but God was continuing to cultivate that call, and that's when I met Justin seminary. I'm gonna take it from you.
Yeah. So for me, I right after undergraduate, when I was 23, the Lord really just kind of arrested me and changed a lot in my life. And I think I was already a believer, but really just a deep understanding of the gospel and my sin and the holiness of God and just the beauty of what Jesus did. And the text I remember vividly was Isaiah 6. And, if you recall at the end of that text, the Lord asked him that question, who will go, right? And it was just as if that's what he was asking me. And I had never disciple making mission had never crossed my mind. I'd never really been taught on it in the church up until that point. But that question just rocked me. And that night I said, Lord, I'll go wherever you want me to go. I'll say whatever you want me to say. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And I had no idea what that meant. And then the years following that, I started to try to share the gospel some. There wasn't a lot of that going on, but I had a heart. I just had a discontent with just going to church and not sharing with lost people, and ended up getting to go on some international trips, and the Lord just began to increase my vision for lostness, vision for the nations, and then decided to go to seminary, and was just kind of advised to do that as a next step. And yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah, and then while we were at seminary, I was you knew some things in church, and I guess a lot of outreach consisted. I coached cross country in Nearby High School, and I ran an undergraduate, and so I was trying to be a witness, but wasn't really sure what that meant. Starting up, Bible studies with teammates and things like that. And I vividly remember one of my teammates, asked me, like, what does this really mean? And just kind of shaking, trying to go through the gospel and explain it and wanting to. And I don't know how clear that went, but it was a blessing to be able to start a Bible study and see a few runners come to faith and had good relationships with them. And we tried to minister to an apartment community that had a lot of refugees there as well. And we just tried to knock on the doors and meet them and see if anyone was interested in studying the Bible together, and go back over and over to their houses and explain more about Jesus to them. And so that was kind of the bulk of our ministry, trying to reach out, but not really sure.
Yeah, I was pretty frustrated. I feel like in those years, I'm really grateful for our education, our time at seminary. We've made some really great relationships, lifelong relationships. But I had good intentions. I think, I really did want to share the gospel. I really did want to make disciples. I didn't yet have a vision for multiplying disciples yet, but I wanted to make disciples. And so, yeah, we would try things, but honestly was not sharing the gospel very often, and didn't see a whole lot of fruit, and was kind of frustrated that whole time. Didn't really have anyone to say, hey, come and watch me, come and I'll show you what to do. And so we that was kind of those years. And then we were the Lord had given us we felt like a call to go to South Asia, and so we were going to go with a mission board to be full-time missionaries in South Asia and just reach those massive numbers of lost people there, right? And so we started down that path, and the Lord redirected us to Botswana, Africa, and that was a little unexpected, but I'll let you roll with it from there.
So after we got married in fall of 2010, and then in spring of 2011, we found out that our oldest daughter, her mom had passed away, and father as well. And so God put it on our hearts
that you'd got to lead to Christ while you were a missionary there.
So her mom was one of my best friends ever there, and become a follower of Jesus, and got to know the whole family really, really well. And so that was a huge blessing, from grandmother to cousins, everyone. And they didn't have much at all. And so God put it on our hearts that no, she's your daughter. You need to go. And so we went on some short-term trips, and things would go well when we're there, but there's no agency or anything like that for adoption to happen. So finally, after some time of trying that, God's like, no, you just need to pack up and go. And so we did, indefinitely, and not knowing how lots of things were going to happen. During those years, God used it to affirm our calling as disciple makers, and then also to increase our faith a lot. We saw him overcome so many trials and challenges in so many different ways, and so that was a big season and journey of that. And by God's grace, got to see some people come to faith during that time as well. But I think just learning that our call and be disciple makers, and just increasing our faith and our love for him during that season.
Yeah, I think for me it was significant. It really was literally and figuratively a desert experience, right? Where the Lord, he took us out of kind of a seminary context. We were at a really good church. We had kind of roles within that church. We had degrees, we had jobs. We had at one point a mission board and a plan, to be in India. And so all the things I think here in the U.S. that we value aren't necessarily bad things, with titles and degrees and plans. And the Lord really, literally in a night, kind of just took all that away when he directed us to Botswana. And so we landed there, and I had nothing. I mean, we literally showed up with our suitcases and no plan. We were living with another missionary for some weeks, and just didn't know how we were going to stay in the country. Didn't know where we would live eventually. Didn't know if we were even going to be able to adopt our daughter. All the while, a burden to share the gospel, and to disciple people, and to start churches and strengthen the church. And the Lord really stripped everything away from me. There was no ministry. It was just slow. It was dry. There was no work. I couldn't get a work permit. I have computer background, and that wasn't going to fly. Rachel ended up taking over a swim business that let us stay in the country, and so I was a dependent on her work permit. So that was humbling. But the Lord just stripped everything away from me in regards to identity, all those things that we cling to. And I remember clear as day, I was just praying and fasting, and it was in the days leading up to our daughter's adoption. So our whole world was just kind of spinning, but also thinking through ministry. And Mark 1:17, where Jesus says, "Follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." The Spirit said, "Is that enough? Is this enough? Is this identity enough for you?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "No, I need that other stuff, And he just waited. He waited me out for probably weeks until I came back around, and was like, "You know what? It is, because this is who I am. I'm your son. I'm your child, your adopted child," which meant a lot in that season. But I'm also a fisher of men. This is who I am, a follower of Christ and a fisher of men. And so from there, just kind of, we didn't see a lot of fruit in Botswana, but he began to build us up a little bit and give us some ministry. And we shared the gospel, a good bit. And and by God's grace, got to see a few people start following Jesus that we still work with today that are actually multiplying disciples and training there now. And, so it was a hard desert season, but God just began to kind of give us a heart and also show us that there was a gap in our training, that we just felt like, man, we were just missing something. And because we didn't feel equipped to do what he was calling us to do. And so
what was the gap?
We didn't know it then.
Yeah, you didn't. The practical tools and the big picture vision for the right steps, and then also that the end didn't it didn't end with us, the big picture, and so needing to train and equip others in the same vision and practical process as well. And so yeah, and a lot of paradigms needed to be broken down from what we experience as church here to seeing it happen in the Bible as well, what the Bible describes as church. So a lot of that was being broken down and seeing that what we've known isn't going to happen here. Not that we were striving for that, but we didn't know what to strive for and didn't really understand how to put the Bible in those practical terms, I guess.
Yeah,
practical steps.
I think the way I would say it is when we were coming out of seminary, going to the nations to be missionaries. I felt like the Great Commission kind of ended with me, if that makes sense. So I'm to do this. And I missed that little part about, teach them to obey. That's the whole point. It is multiplication. It is to be passed on, downstream. We didn't have tools or processes or even a vision that big. And so I think that's what it was. And then also just seeing things in the church there that honestly reflected even some experience with church here that I had lots of candid conversations with African brothers there about, I remember one in particular where we were talking about just different things that, missionaries brought the gospel, praise God, people, a lot of people have died taking the gospel to Africa and have laid a foundation, and we should celebrate that. But just saw that me in that season, I was giving them more than that. I was giving them a lot of tradition, and their observation was that had been happening for a while from Western missionaries. And so I asked one brother the question at one point. I said, what would have happened if we would have just brought the gospel and then just helped you like feed yourself from the word and not all of the tradition and the church culture and all that stuff that we brought as well. And his eyes just lit up, and he was like, well, I think we would be thriving right now instead of just kind of floundering. And
a lot of the leaders felt handcuffed.
Yeah. And so I think that's probably enough for gap.
Okay. What happened next?
So after about 2 years in Botswana, and that's a whole nother podcast story, what happened there, but God miraculously opened up the Red Sea and pretty much sent us back to America. We weren't sure why and how and what was going to happen, but he did. We were joining some friends who were starting up a church plant in the States, and that we knew from the past, and it supported us well over in Botswana. And so we moved back to Raleigh and just began to flounder, trying to transition so quickly with so many uncertainties, but and trying to figure out America, living and being a parent in America and what that meant and everything else. But and then just saw kind of pulled back into traditional church models that weren't freeing and allowing us to reach out to the lost, to the capacity that God had stirred up in our hearts.
Yeah, no, I think for me, again, it was still identity, right? The Lord is continuing to shape character and identity. He just never stops. And we landed back here. And for me, just to be honest, with stuff that we went through in Botswana and then just the lack of, we left Botswana in like a 48-hour window. So we got back here and had no plan. We were living in a friend of ours' basement for some months. And just had no clue why we were back. We just knew that I had heard really clearly one day in Botswana when we were praying, Lord, are we here? Are we here till our daughter's 18? That's what it was looking like. Or are you going to make a way for us to leave? And he clearly told me before he made the way, he was going to make a way. He said, I have work for you in Raleigh. And I said, no, that's not the way. I don't want to do that. And so then just kind of stored that in my mind so that's why we moved back to Raleigh. That was all we had to go on, honestly. And so we did.
Moving back with your new daughter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Now we have a daughter, a responsibility. And so, yeah, and we had some community here, like Rachel said. So it's a great city. It's a neat place. We still have lots of good connections with the seminary that we were part of. And so, yeah, we just started this new journey of, I think, really figuring out how God had wired and gifted us. I had never, I don't know, I just had no idea. We kept trying to fit into a mold in kind of the traditional church, and just found that there wasn't really a position. There wasn't they didn't really know what to do with us.
We didn't know how to be on mission in America.
Yeah, and so George Robinson, he's a good friend and professor at the seminary we were at. He could just see the frustration, and so he's like, hey, I think you should go and hang out with these guys in Tennessee, connected to this network called No Place Left.
And he learned 4 fields on a napkin, and then went out sharing and saw, some people come to faith, and a Nepali guy destroy idols and all this stuff in just like a weekend.
When I saw that, it was like a light just turned on. It was 2 guys, Zach Medlock and Ron Surgeon, in Memphis, and we were just in a coffee shop. They didn't share any tools, nothing. I came back to Raleigh not having a clue really what to do, but I was fired up. I'm like, this makes sense, and I see it actually helps my life make sense. And it was just that identity piece started to come together. Jesus was saying, this is what I've called you to do. And who I've made you to be, really turned my world upside down and gave me a big vision for Raleigh. Like, man, we're going to go after the whole of Raleigh-Durham, the whole triangle. At that time, probably 2 million people, 1.5 were far from God. And, I mean, I quit many times, God, I quit. That somebody stands me up, for a follow-up Discovery Bible study, and I'm done. And then he talks me off the ledge, and so I think during that season our family was doing a lot of healing as well. The Lord was just healing us from some stuff that we experienced overseas, and so it was a really, I think, sweet hard time. I think giving us encouraged by other brothers, but just more time in the Word. The No Place Left community we feel like we're a part of is just really passionate about more Bible. Let's get in the Word. If we have issues, let's go to the Word. A lot more prayer, a lot more fasting. That had not been a very consistent discipline in our lives, at least my life, and then became that as we just desperately sought to see God move in our city. And so, as far as just skills, we just progressed. I mean, we shared the gospel a lot. We started to train other people to share the gospel. Very slowly, God would bring people into the kingdom, and we would get an opportunity to disciple, using 3/3 and just different Discovery Bible studies like Commands of Christ, and got to see a few churches start and gather together. And so got to use some of the really neat tools for church formation and church health. And then as we got into some leadership development, that's when the Lord kind of, it was really a group of guys that started thinking through this idea of residency. So what would it look like to really just box off a season, an 8 to 12 month season where we really are taking people and investing deeply, wanting to see them grow, just like you said, head, heart, and hands, and both being practitioners, being missionaries here together, and then seeking the Lord together in community, and really kind of a true missional community or church, if you will. And through that, I think the Lord really began to kind of grow leaders in our city. And we saw a few people mobilize out of that. We have over the years, not a lot, not as many as we want yet, but we have seen it kind of fill our city with solid leaders, and that's kind of why we're where we're at, where we feel like we don't have much work. There's still work to be done, but we don't have much work here anymore because there's people who are owning it, who are owning that missionary task.
We said we can't go back overseas unless we can be on mission well here. And so we said that, but we didn't know what that meant. And then God answered that prayer and answered prayers from past, just how can we do this and be used by God? And so growing in head knowledge and the competency and competency as well, and actually practically doing the missionary task and doing it here. But then we had made a commitment to continue to see, we thought that'd be going back over to South Asia still, and we had a commitment though to continue to see Case's grandmother. And she had told us before the adoption, God took away my daughter but gave me a son and daughter in place. And so she's an amazing widow of God who he's using mightily over there. But so we would continue. We went back to visit a year later, and we took a team and started implementing whatever we do to that extent back there with our brothers and sisters in Botswana. And it was just a joy and a blessing to see them and grasp the tools and coming straight from the Word and feeling empowered to run with the missionary task and not just have to be alongside us, but empowered to do it without us. And so that was just a huge blessing, especially on the last one when two brothers had come to faith, and so we just empowered them to baptize, and they weren't pastors or identified as that. And so just to see their faith strengthen through that and through these simple tools and their heart and vision for the lost around them, it just increased our heart even more for our brothers and sisters in Botswana and Africa, and just seeing how hungry they were for these tools that we had been learning in the States and coming from the Word in a way that suited their culture, because the Bible does that. It transcends culture and time and place and all that. And so that started stirring in our hearts a desire some years ago that we just started praying on, what does this mean, God, basically, and just started kind of asking around and looking and praying about that and seeing God start answering those questions about his next step for us in our lives.
It was really a 4-day, Four Fields 4-day intensive that Troy Cooper invited us to, I think in 2016 down in Florida. And Jeff Sundell and Chuck Wood. And
yeah, we've been about a year or so later.
Yeah, and so we just started meeting a lot of these guys and just seeing brothers that are ahead of us, in the race, they're just giving their lives for this vision of No Place Left. And I think it was really there that everything kind of a lot clicked for us, and then we came back just really free. We felt like we were free to pursue who God had called us to be and what He called us to do here in Raleigh. And that's really when we started to run after some of the residencies and starting churches and things like that. We never thought we would end up in Africa long term. We came back from Africa the first time thinking we'll be in Raleigh a few years and then we'll go to South Asia. That was our plan. And I don't know, maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago, the Lord just started to put Africa on our heart. We stayed in contact with missionary friends over there that got some training, some Four Fields training about the same time we did as we left Botswana, and they were moving into a different role in Kenya. And so we just kind of kept track. And then also here in Raleigh, there was an African young man that came to faith, and we got to baptize. And so there were different families that we were ministering to here from Africa. And I think the Lord used that as well to stir our heart, and just kind of kept that in front of us. And then just wasn't really looking for it, but starting to sense man, there's something else. And so then Rachel and I went on a vision trip last summer to Kenya, and just asking God if this is, we had a few spots picked out as the Lord has helped us understand kind of how we're gifted in the kingdom, with equipping others to run much further. Then we just kind of went into this trip with that in mind. So God, where will we fit? Where can we, if it is Africa, if it is this massive continent, where can we be most effective for you? And it really became clear during those few weeks there in Kenya that I actually really resisted that, to be quite honest with you. I'm like, Lord, every missionary goes to Kenya. That's what everyone does. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. This is so not an original story. But as we were there, Steve, just we got to meet. The Lord just put this strategic line of people in front of us, of African brothers and sisters that we got to hang out with, and we got to hear their hearts. And I asked everyone I could, I'm like, is there a role for me here? Like, is there anything that I can do to serve the church here? And time and time again, we heard God's moving in East Africa, and we heard big vision. We heard, man, we want to reach Kenya. We want to reach the Horn. We want to reach Africa. And then we heard, but we need help. We need encouragement. We need to be told we can do it. We need simple tools. Everything from gospel to especially discipleship to strategy development. And as we were there, the Lord just, conversation after conversation, yes, this is, they basically kind of wrote our job description, we feel like, as we were there. And so I think we left pretty, yeah.
We asked the kids to pray about it as well, and they felt, firm in God's calling as well. And so that helped encourage us and support us that this is the next step.
We are. So we're going with E3 Partners, and then we're actually we're gonna attach to an IMB team there on the ground. We have a lot of friends that we're going to be working closely with, and so we're excited. We're really excited. I guess the vision, Steve, is for us is the continent. You just look at I think what's close to 1.3 billion people, and but there's a mission force there, right? Conservatively 400 million that are evangelicals, right? That are just, what we're seeing is many are eager to reach the rest, not just in Africa, but to the ends of the earth. And I'm convinced that